Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. I would like you to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Boy Scout Troop 616. If you could please come forward and lead us in the pledge, and everyone else, please stand. May I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Greenberg.
Here.
Mrs. Bacon.
Here.
Mr. Laney.
Here.
Mrs. Matura.
Here.
Mrs. Case.
Here.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of agenda. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President. Mature items approved by consent will not come up for discussion during the meeting, but will be approved when the agenda is adopted. This is possible since members of the governing board receive the agenda along with backup materials at least 24 hours prior to the meeting and have time to review and consider all items. Prior to the agenda being adopted, members of the governing board or audience may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the floor for discussion at the appropriate place on the agenda. I would like to offer the agenda as posted.
Does any member of the governing board wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Does any member of the audience wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, Mrs. Bacon, may I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda and recommend consent agenda items G1 to G16?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is governing board statements. Mrs. Bacon, you.
I don't have anything specific, and Dr. Bales may talk about this, but I don't know if y'all saw, but we had a lot of students have perfect ACT scores. 8, right? 8 students. 8 of our students had perfect ACT scores. I mean, as someone who just struggled to get into college, that's just amazing to me that is. So I want to congratulate them, their families, and all of the wonderful educators who have helped them through the years get to that point where they are.
Mr. Laney?
All right, first of all, I would like to thank all of the principals, TOAs, assistant principals that have been able to meet with me throughout my school visits. I still have a few more. I've been visiting all the schools, and it's the highlight of this job. Being able to see all the little kids. On Tuesday, I was standing outside of a room as a first grade girl was peeking back through the window, making faces at me. And it was hilarious. On a more serious note, I wanted to make sure publicly that parents know what's being done in the district to address certain things. I know you've heard me say this, and I know Dr. Bells feels this way, that we want to have more local control. I've talked with him about getting ahead on possible contentious issues so they don't have to be contentious. 2 issues, bathroom policy and curriculum transparency. I've talked with Dr. Bells about the bathroom policy several times. I've asked for it to be an item on the board meeting agenda. I want to let you know that this is being worked on. He has instructed the district attorney to work on this, and I know they will work on a policy that will work for all kids in the district. When it's ready, it'll be brought before the board so that we can discuss it, make suggestions, changes, and provide safe places for all kids. As far as curriculum transparency, I've also talked with him about this several times too. As I know, states across the nation are forcing schools to implement policy through laws. Being consistent with trying to keep local board control, I've also asked for this to be brought before the board as it will be in a future meeting. As many of you know, we have a new website this coming year, and I'm super excited for it. We had a preview of it a short while ago, and they've been doing a great job on it. So we're working on a way to implement transparency with what is taught in the classroom. I feel there's a way to do this without putting more stress on our teachers, while at the same time offering transparency with what is being taught to our kids. And this will be much easier to be done on our new website. And so I hope that will be implemented in the future, and we'll discuss it at a future day. And that's all I have.
Deanne, do you happen to know if Mrs. Case was asking?
Yes, I just want to make a short comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I can see all the artwork out there, and I want to congratulate the artists and their families while they're there. It's one of my favorite school board meetings, and I'm sorry to miss it. And I'll make sure I look at all these new pieces when I'm back in Phoenix. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Yes, and since our last board meeting, I had the opportunity, excuse me, to visit PVEA's prom boutique. And I know others have had that chance too. It's incredible. I think we have one more Saturday. And I don't know, Susie, if you're going to be talking about it, so I won't steal your thunder, but for those of you who don't know what it is, for several years now, our teachers have put together what it used to be dresses and bows. But students who are going to prom just come with a PV student ID and they're able to leave with an outfit, both male and female. And I'll stop now because Susie's going to talk more about it. But it was wonderful. And while I was there were several students who did indeed find outfits, and it was great. And they will always take more donations. So if anybody has prom-worthy attire, this would be a great place to donate. Thank you.
Okay, and last week I was able to go to the Dapstone celebration at Shadow Mountain High School, and I knew of the DAPS program and at Shadow Mountain, but I had never seen the projects because we weren't doing in-person project type things the past couple of years. So it was really exciting to go to Shadow Mountain and see the capstone project to the DAPS program and see what all of these students were able to do as their independent project for the year. And there was a student even who took our math curriculum and was making videos for each chapter in each section of our math curriculum for algebra. And I thought that sounded very exciting to be a resource out there. And she wanted to do that for the AVID students in her school. And so there were so many projects where students were looking to give back to the community, give back to their school, learn something completely new, take a whole bunch of different cross-curriculum things that they'd learned throughout their high school experience and bring it together in one project. And it was really exciting. We have really talented students out there. Can't wait to see, what they do next. And it's always great to get out in the schools and celebrate with our students. So I appreciate being able to do that. So next on the agenda is awards and recognitions with Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Matura. It's always a pleasure to highlight students and staff for success or appreciation. Excuse me. Tonight, Mr. Droege will MC the honors.
Good evening, President Matura, governing board members, Dr. Bales, members of cabinet, and attendees both in person and virtual. Tonight, we have several student and employee recognitions to share with you. The first of which is the governing board. This evening, we'll be accepting new pieces of student artwork into the district's permanent art collection. Maureen Mennick, Director of the Fine Arts Department, is here this evening to make the presentation.
Good evening. Tonight's presentation of visual arts is a tradition I am especially proud to uphold. If you walk around the district office, you will see pieces created and purchased in our collection all the way back from the year I was born. I just turned 40 last month, so that gives you an idea of just how long this has been a part of the PV Schools culture. A little about the process that has led us to tonight. Every year, thousands of pieces of 2D and 3D art are displayed at the PV Schools Fine Arts Festival in the spring. Teachers from every art classroom in our district install a variety of pieces that represent their students' best work from the previous months. Not every student is chosen to have their work displayed, so being featured in the festival is an honor on its own. From these thousands of pieces, we bring in an outside judge from the greater Phoenix arts community to choose their top 4 choices in the elementary, middle, and high school categories. They assess artistic technique just as much as they assess the overall aesthetics or emotional and visual appeal. Each of these students here tonight are being compensated for their unique and special work, which has now been professionally framed and will grace the walls around us in the boardroom for the next 3 years until they too are dispersed among the district's hallowed halls to still be enjoyed 40 years from now. While I'm sure we are all impressed by their incredible talent, I'm especially pleased to let you know that when a teacher is informed, many of them are here tonight, that their student's work has been chosen for a district purchase, they do not go on and on about the artwork. They go on and on about the child. How meaningful it is to not only applaud their artistic accomplishments tonight, but to meet these wonderful artists who will continue their journey of excellence, ushering us into a creative and colorful future. I now invite each student to come up to the dais to present their work to the board as their name is called, and then please stay in front here of President Matura for a photo. Olivia Lucero, kindergartner from Sandpiper Elementary School. Should we do the photo first? Sorry. Okay, and then Olivia, he's gonna take your photo real quick, okay? Okay. Great, and then Olivia, if you'll come this way, students, you're gonna come right over here. Oh, yes, thank you. Go ahead and put your photo. Now, everybody watch Olivia, because she's getting us all ready. Perfect. Awesome. And you're gonna head right over here, and we have a special ribbon and a check for you. Alfonso Cida, 6th grader from Cactus View Elementary School. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Good job. Thank you, Alfonso. Layal Mati from, I'm sorry, 5th grader from Pinnacle Peak Prep. Good job. That was a heavy one. I was worried about you. Isabella Black is not here tonight. She is a 6th grader from Indian Bend Elementary School. This is Kira Tomos, an 8th grader at Desert Shadows Middle School. All right. This is Kat Melnick, 8th grader at Explorer Middle School. Oh, Kat, you got to go closer. The detail is awesome. Yeah. Addie Long, 8th grader at Shea Middle School. Pencil. No, that's okay. Georgiana Skid was unable to be here tonight. She is an 8th grader at Sunrise Middle School. Roisin Tell, 11th grader at Sweetwater Community School. Abigail Aravalo, 12th grader at Horizon High School. Haley McLaughlin, 12th grader in the NVAA art program at Shadow Mountain High School. And our last student unfortunately could not make it tonight. This is Alyssa Hannum, 12th grader from Pinnacle High School. Thank you so much.
Ms. Minnick, do we have some of the teachers here? If they are here as well, we'd like to stand and give them a round of applause for supporting our students in this endeavor. Thank you, teachers. And to our wonderful parents, thank you for sharing your students with us on this journey of excellence. Parents, give us a wave if you're here as well. Thank you so much.
Showcasing their science and engineering knowledge, PV Schools students brought home several awards from this year's Arizona Science and Engineering Fair, which was held on March 29th. PV Schools had its most successful year ever, with teams winning at all 3 levels: elementary 5th through 6th grade, junior 7th through 8th grade, and senior 9th through 12th grade. The students being recognized this evening are first place winners. Please stand to be recognized when I call your name. Bradley Alberdy from Greyhawk Elementary School. Carolina Leone from Mountain Trail Middle School. Unable to be here tonight is Emma Gerhard from Paradise Valley High School. Unable to be here this evening from Paradise Valley High School is Ella Schmidt. Also unable to be here this evening from Paradise Valley High School is Nancy Schwartz. Next is Serbi Chanduk from Paradise Valley High School. And McKinley Paseocos from Paradise Valley High School. President Matura and Governing Board, it's important to note that those last 2 names I read were not only first place, but also Best in Fair International Science and Engineering Fair qualifiers.
That's awesome.
Next is the 2022 National History Day Arizona State Competition. Sunrise Middle School had 3 students win first place at the History Day Arizona State Competition and will advance to nationals in June. These 3 students who will stand to be recognized are Ira Parsons, Audrey Harrelson, and Isabel Ross. And these students are supported by gifted teacher Becky Kerr and Principal Greg Martin. You can see that I cannot speak and run a presentation at the same time, so here we'll advance forward. Next, we have PVSEA Professional of the Month. PVSEA President, Ms. Michelle Courtwright, is here this evening to make the presentation.
President Matura, Governing Board, Dr. Bales, and Cabinet. Tonight is my pleasure to talk about the ESP of the month. Her name is Jane Monroe, and she is a paraeducator at Roadrunner. And one of her main jobs is to work in the intervention room. And I don't know how many of you have ever been in an intervention room, but it's not always a pleasant experience. And one of the things that people have said about her is that Jane has one of the most difficult roles at Roadrunner, yet she does it in a calm, consistent, kind way. Jane is consistent in her support of students who receive interventions, and regularly students escalate and say and do things that are a little aggressive or angry. You would think that most kids wouldn't like the adult that is in that role, but she is one of the most beloved employees on campus. All students know who she is, and even the ones that don't go to intervention, she takes time to have positive interactions with, and she makes sure that their environment is positive and they know they are loved and supported. Those are the kind of education people we want, and especially in our paraeducators. They spend a lot of one-on-one time with students, and it's one of our hardest places to fill. And she has been doing it for a very long time, and the students love her, the teachers love her, and she does it in a way that makes all of us want to go over and watch her to figure out some ways to do this in our own classrooms. So I would like to take this time to say thank you to her for everything she does. Thank you.
And that concludes awards and recognitions for this evening.
Next on the agenda is call to the public. We are about to convene call to the public, which allows the public the opportunity to address the board. Although state law does not require that we hold a call to the public, we have chosen to do so because we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community about concerns and issues. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. Call to the public is not designed to be a discussion. Due to Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot respond to, discuss, or take any action on items brought up during this time. However, staff members may be directed to get back to you to address individual concerns. Additionally, I want to remind you that in lieu of speaking tonight, you may choose to submit written comments to the board by completing a public comment form on the district homepage. All comments submitted by noon today have been provided to each governing board member and to the superintendent's office in advance of tonight's meeting. Tonight, we have 4 people who have submitted comment cards prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for remarks. Those who have asked to speak on agenda items will be recognized at the appropriate time during the meeting. As a reminder, the point of this and every board meeting is to accomplish the business at hand and to be able to do so openly and collaboratively. All in attendance are expected to observe our meeting rules as well as rules of politeness and decorum so that we may serve as an example to our students that issues can be discussed in a respectful and civil manner. Please state your first and last name when you come to the podium. Our first speaker is Barbara Jennings, and the next speaker will be Jennifer Ariza.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Jennings. That's it, right? Yeah, that's all you need from me. It's been a while since I've been here, but I felt like I needed to voice my opinion regarding the spending of the 200 grand towards lobbyists. I've spent many hours down at the Senate and the House, and I observed exactly what lobbyists do, and they aren't for the people, and they certainly aren't going to be representing our students either. So this is our tax dollars that are going to lobbyists who are going to work against us. And to build this bridge that has been divided, and partially it's been divided because things have been hidden from the parents and the public. Spending that much money to further divide the parents from what we want for our children, which what we were hoping that you would want to, which is for a good education for our kids to be enriched mentally, to move forward, not to become social activists, which is what is happening with our curriculum in all of our schools. And it's shameful. The fact that the Arizona School Board Association sued the legislature to take 3 important items out of a bill, which was critical race theory, which is social emotional learning. Those are the same. Mask mandates and vaccine mandates. And the ASBA, who again, our tax dollars pay to join this committee organization, $30,000 a year for them to again work against the parents. I don't know how to bridge it. I want to trust that you guys are going to do what is best for our children, what's best for their mind. It crushes my heart and soul. I'm so glad my son is a sophomore. He's got 2 more years in public education, but I feel like our system is so broken right now. And where are the people who have honesty and integrity and who are going to fight for our children and stop inputting this over-sexualization and the critical race theory into it's in everything. It's in our math books. You can't have Jane be the baker anymore. Jane has to be the fisher. Bill has to be the baker. It's just the absurdity. Our children are being attacked nobody's disenfranchising the LGBTQ. I can't remember how many more letters are, but nobody's disenfranchising them. Everybody has the right to be who they are, but they are the ones who are coming after our children. And I think that has been made very clear for teachers who have gone on the libs of TikTok. If you haven't seen any of those videos, there's plenty of them putting these sexual identities into the minds of young children, elementary school children, and that is wrong. And I don't understand why you're not protecting our children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Riza, and first I want to thank you for the time each of you guys put into your roles here on the school board. And tonight I stand here as a concerned parent in the Paradise Valley School District, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As I stand here tonight, in addition to sexual ideology, as was just spoken about by another parent, I also want to declare that pornography should not be allowed in our schools. Pornography is used to train and desensitize people and increase demand for human sex trafficking. Porn users are often seeking out to act out what they have seen and read in pornography. Additionally, they continue to demand more and more. In order to keep up with the demand, more women and children become prostituted and trafficked across this country. And I'm sure you know that pedophiles cultivate a friendly relationship that investigators call grooming. It could continue for days or weeks before a pedophile begins bringing up sexual topics or asking for explicit pictures. And more importantly, I want people to understand that even if an actual meeting never takes place, it's been documented to note that youngsters can be victimized by sexually explicit material. Has anyone on the board ever known someone who's been a victim of human trafficking? Does everyone realize that Arizona is home to the largest human sex trafficking recovery program? Does everyone know that we are taking elementary age children into this program? If we know that pornography is used by pedophiles to groom children, and if we know that pornography is a gateway to human trafficking, then I have to ask each of the board members, why would you ever allow any pornographic material to be in our schools on your watch? In closing, I would hope that the board recognizes that as citizens, we are called to stand up to ensure the welfare of our communities. When the citizens see that the school board is not ensuring the welfare of our students, I would hope that parents would continue to stand up and fight for their children. Thank you.
Next up is Lily Gresham, and then will be Sandra Christensen.
Hi, my name is Lily Gresham, and I live in the district, and I have a student that goes to Horizon. I had 4 topics to discuss, but I only have 3 minutes, so I'll try to hit 2 of them briefly. The first one is I think for people to attend these meetings, especially to speak, they should live in the district and they should have a student at our schools, because sometimes when you have these meetings, there's lots and lots of people, and there's people that are outside that want to cause conflict, and they hold up signs, and they come from different areas, and they have nothing to do with our students. They're just here to wreak havoc and get on the news. Because I almost got like assaulted by one of them at one of the meetings. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that I think that anybody who comes to these meetings, especially anyone who gets up to speak, should be from the district and have a student at one of our schools. Okay, the second thing I wanted to say is I don't know what pornographic materials people are talking about being used at schools. There is a bill called House Bill 2495, which the fact sheet on it is about school sexually explicit materials prohibition. And it prohibits public schools from referring students to using or seeing any sexually explicit materials. And any parent that objects to any of the learning material or activity on the basis that it is harmful may withdraw their student. And Anyone who objects to any learning material on the activity on the basis that material or activity is harmful means objecting to the material or activity because of sexual content, violent content, or profane or vulgar language. So I guess that would mean, that would cut out pretty much most of history or anything. That could pertain to anything. Okay, so I think that book banning has increased dramatically since last fall, and I think these bans are censorship. I believe that knowledge is power, education is power, and there are some activists that are making a concerted effort to purge books from schools written by people of color and LGBTQ authors. Maybe because these people don't want their students or any students learning about race, racism, people who identify as trans or gay, or any marginalized group. These book bans are used to ban the supposed CRT, critical race theory, being taught in our schools. CRT is only taught in universities and law schools. However, the term CRT is being used as a catch-all term for all various teachings about race. So students are not allowed to learn any historical topic that mentions race or racism. Is my time up? Is that my time? Okay. Okay, thank you.
President Matura, Dr. Bells, and governing board members, my name is Sandra Christensen. Thank you for allowing me to be here today and celebrating the success of our kids. So as somebody who has a science background and an art collector, this was a really cool celebration of the kids. So I was really happy to be here today. I hope that we would celebrate the success of all our children. And so I've been reviewing the Arizona Department of Education's comprehensive school report card system. I went back before COVID-19 because I know that we had some challenges with COVID. So I just want to share some numbers with you. 2018 to 2019 school district, the Paradise Valley Unified School District in ELA had 32% of our children be proficient, meaning at grade level, and 17% highly proficient, meaning 49%, which is less than half of our children, are proficient or highly proficient. In math, 29% proficient, 18%. So 40% of our children are either proficient or highly proficient in math. And then science, 28% and 29%, so about 57%. These are dismal numbers. And I compared to a school that, we would like to maybe meet, and I looked at Basis Scottsdale. Their ELA was 37% proficient, 54%, so 91% of their children are either proficient or highly proficient. In math, 34 and 55% respectively, at 91% proficient. Science, 15% meets and 81% exceeds. So this is something we should aspire to in our school district. So I thought maybe they're spending a lot more money per kid, and that wasn't the case. We're spending about $9,045 per student in our district, and they were spending in the $8,000 range, so it was actually less. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to compare apples to apples. So I looked at Higley Unified, and their numbers were also much higher than, and I'm running out of time, so I won't go through all the numbers, but they were well over 50%, so 63, 65, and 75% proficient compared to Paradise Valley Unified. So in closing, as parents, teachers, educators, we want to come alongside and let our students be as successful as possible. So let's put dollars back in the classroom, recruit and retain quality teachers, and let teachers get back to teaching the basics, math, science. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is Dr. Bales and superintendent comments.
Thank you, President Matura, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. This month of April has been set aside to celebrate autistic people and promote inclusion and understanding. In 2021, the Autism Society of America announced a change to the designation from Autism Awareness Month to Autism Acceptance Month. Special education departments and school districts across the country work to provide support and services for autistic students. We are so grateful for the work and dedication of our special education educators and paraeducators supporting students in this area. This week is National Volunteer Week, which recognizes the contributions of volunteers. Parent and community volunteers are invaluable resources for our teachers and students. PV Schools is fortunate and grateful to have dedicated volunteers who motivate and inspire others by giving their time, knowledge, and heart to support the school community. If you'd like to volunteer your time to increase student achievement, our Volunteer in Paradise program is recruiting volunteers to provide one-on-one or small group instruction for kindergarten through 8th grade students. Visit pvschools.net/VIP to learn more. Thank you to all of our volunteers. As briefly mentioned earlier, we do have cause to celebrate some outstanding young people who earned perfect ACT scores. I'm thrilled to announce that those 8 students in our district recently earned that 36 on ACT. It's an incredible accomplishment. We're so proud of them, their hard work and dedication. From Paradise Valley High School, the students are Baylor Green, Jason Latz, and Gavin Russo. From Pinnacle High School, Ethan Kirshner, Lily McGeever, Hudson Rodney, and Benin Watson. And from Shadow Mountain High School, Annalise Vincent. Furthermore, 10 students earned a composite score of 35, and 16 students earned a composite score of 34. Congratulations. We are so proud of you. Congratulations to your parents, your teachers that support you along the way. I also had the opportunity to visit the Dapstone celebration last week. I had the pleasure of attending this, as several others did as well. And during the event, the Digital Academy of Advanced Placement Scholars, DAPS, those students presented their year-long capstone projects to parents, fellow DAPS students, Shadow Mountain administrators, and staff. It was a wonderful event. But the piece I'd like to add is that this DAPS class of 2022 has been awarded $2 million in scholarships so far. What an achievement. Congratulations. In PV Schools, we pride ourselves on our community relationships. In fact, you'll see community strength as part of our strategic plan later in this evening. This commitment to community was solidified recently when we were nominated as one of the best public school districts in the Phoenix area. The nomination comes as part of the Jewish News, a 74-year-old newspaper and magazine publisher, 2022 Reader's Choice Series. Thank you to PV Schools community for this nomination. It means a great deal to us. Community members can vote for PV Schools, PVUSD, Best of the Best, anytime before May 15th. And there is a link to voting on our website at the home page. Tonight, we'd also like to take the opportunity. We take great pride in growing our own leadership and capitalizing on the capacity we build with our employees. For more than 40 years, we have been identifying, developing, and nurturing aspiring administrators in our administrative internship and management training program. Each year, we select a small group of teacher leaders and provide them with experiences to continue to prepare them to be administrators in our district. Tonight, we would like to recognize this year's AIM class, and at this time, I'd like them to stand and be recognized with a round of applause. Take a good look, because history tells us that you will see many of these faces helping lead our schools in the future. Congratulations to all of you. The Arizona Department of Education's partnership with Donors Choose has provided resources to more than 15,000 teachers at 1,600 schools across the state. In PV schools, $430,000, $438,878 to be exact, went towards classroom materials over the past 2 weeks, making 482 projects a reality. I'd like to express our gratitude to those who helped fund classroom projects through Donors Choice. Choose these classes. In tonight's mission moment, we where we highlight areas that engage, inspire, and nurture students through high-quality instruction, meaningful educational opportunities, and dynamic learning experiences. I'd like to highlight our PV Women in Information Technology, PV WIT program. This program focuses on gender equity in the information technology field. It helps to turn the page on a national challenge to recruit and retain women in technology-related positions. We recently had 2 current PV students, 2 graduates of PV, and all PV WIT attend and present at the Consortium for School Networking in Nashville. Not only is this a point of pride for the district, but it's also a milestone on these students' journey of excellence. Congratulations to all of them. And also mentioned just briefly about our prom boutique sponsored by PVEA. I'm happy to report that ahead of this year's prom season, the prom boutique has made incredible impact. This year, over 100 students have been dressed for prom at no cost. They're participating in approximately, they can support approximately 50 more prom goers, and so to be outfitted at the boutiques at this weekend's last opportunity. Thank you to our dedicated staff for committing your time to making the prom special for all. I'd also like to thank the community and the generous donations received. Lastly, allow me to express my deepest appreciation for our community support. This support has allowed us to continue offering high-quality instruction, meaningful educational opportunities, and dynamic learning experiences. The support of our voters has allowed for our facilities to properly match the level of instruction and potential of our students. There were several construction items approved in the consent portion of tonight's agenda that will take place this summer. You'll see more of these projects as we move forward. Painting, remodels, furniture, and more are all contributing to the success of our students, offering them updated spaces to collaborate and learn and grow. Thank you, PV supporters. And those are my comments tonight, President Matura.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is items for approval. Dr. Bales.
Item H1, President Matura, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. In this item, we recommend a partnership to use existing facility space, improve services for special education students, and increase revenues for the district. Dr. Jarris will present for approval.
President Matura, Dr. Bales, Governing Board, and Cabinet. Tonight I present for your approval a lease agreement with the Austin Centers for Exceptional Students, also known as the ACES, for the Cholla campus. The Cholla campus was previously the home of Roadrunner School prior to the construction of their new campus, which opened at the beginning of this school year. The ACES is a state-certified special education school for kindergarten through 12th grade special needs students, and they serve the academic and behavioral needs of students who require more intensive special education services that then can be provided within Arizona Public School Districts, charter schools, and state placement agencies. This lease agreement will benefit the district in several ways. First, the lease will provide an annual revenue source for the district. It will reduce the transportation costs that we currently spend to send students to the ACES campuses in Tempe and Peoria. As part of this agreement, we will receive up to 250 days of focused behavioral intervention for our students. And it also ensures the use of one of our school sites during a time when the district is not currently in need of the site. At this time, we would recommend your approval.
We do have one public comment card, Nicole Klutwick. And you'll have 3 minutes.
I don't think I'll need 3 minutes. Yeah, I was just reading through the lease, and there was just one clause that kind of concerned me a little bit. And it says that the district agrees to offer the ACES as its first option for placement of any students who require placement outside of the district, and commits to placing the ACES as many students as possible who are currently placed in other private day schools. I don't know where they are now. I tried looking through the vouchers. Too hard to find them, to find which schools we're sending them to. If we are sending them currently to ACES, awesome, that's great. But I would say that, like, based on what's going on here, all they need is 11 students, right? The one that's free in the lease plus an extra 10. And then they have free rent, which seems very bizarre. but that's how the lease is written. And considering the fact that most ACES schools, well, the two ACES schools currently have 280 and 136 students, it just seems like, are we giving the school away? So I just wanted that to be considered and thought about before you guys voted. Thank you.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve resolution number 511, property lease agreement between Paradise Valley Unified School District and Austin Centers for Exceptional Students as presented?
So moved.
Does anyone, member of the board, have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
I do have. Okay, go ahead, Nancy. Mrs. Case.
Oh, okay, thank you. What was just brought up, the 10, how does that work? Is there more details on that I don't understand?
Ms. Berrigan, would you care to provide the background regarding the market rate per square foot?
Yeah, we worked with our attorneys to determine what an appropriate market rate per square foot would be. So we're charging what they would charge approximately at any for-profit, leasing company for property in this area. So it's not as though we're giving away the property for them. Businesses are allowed to make a profit in the state of Arizona, and it's up to them to determine what they charge per student. I don't know if that answers Mrs. Case's question.
Well, what's the deal about how many students? How does that work?
I think Dr. Jarris might have more information on that. I mean, we are already sending students to the ACES program. It's a program we would use and continue to use whether they were renting from our district or not. As Dr. Jarris mentioned, we have the additional benefit of not having to transport those students to campuses in Tempe and Mesa, I believe. Dr. Jarris?
Yes, correct. We currently contract the ACES for approximately 30 students a year on average. And so this would allow us the opportunity to have them, rather than transport them to the other campuses, they would be transporting them there. If we did not have this lease agreement, we would continue to contract with them. We would be sending them to locations outside of our district boundaries instead of within our district boundaries.
And President Matura, if I may add, we had a number of revisions to this lease agreement and worked with our attorney. I don't know, Dr. Jarris, do you recall maybe up to 10 drafts of this? So we were very thoughtful in putting this forth before the board.
Is there, if we have up to 10 students, is it a break even situation?
I'm not technically sure how to answer that question, Mrs. Case. We're receiving a monthly lease arrangement with them, so we're receiving income from them on a monthly basis. And I'm not sure how you would determine if there's a break even in there in terms of the what we in turn use them for.
Okay, I just am not familiar with the details that were brought up. I know that in the past, we have spent a great deal of money in getting our students to other places. And to us, it was a good use of them. I mean, I went through this very detailed at the time that we agreed to it. And are those agreements that we originally thought, is that all working out as we had hoped?
Yes, this is as we presented. This was part of the discussion when we proposed the rebuilding of the Roadrunner campus. And then one of the benefits would be that we would have the current building available to rent out to a vendor such as the ACES that would allow us a revenue stream for use of space that we're not typically using. The lease itself does not necessarily change our need or our partnership with sending students to other campuses when the need calls for it. And so having them here just it helps us save some money in the terms of transportation. If we did not again have this lease, we would continue to send those students to other campuses when the need arises.
I just remember going through this in detail, and if things haven't changed, it is the same. I mean, it was a win-win for us because I asked lots of questions at the time.
It is similar. It is the same as when we discussed it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Laney?
Just a quick question, since I wasn't here when a lot of this was discussed. How much are we saving by doing this? That's the other part of the win-win that she was talking about, I'm sure.
Dr. Jarris, did you want to answer that or do you?
I would love to answer that if I can recall the exact number.
The number's a little under 200,000, if I remember correctly, in terms of the rent that we're receiving. We have the 250 days, which is an additional benefit that we're not receiving now of the services that Dr. Jarris mentioned in his summary. Ultimately, this lease agreement benefits us more than it benefits the ACEs. We would spend the same amount of students, as we said, at ACEs as we would now, and have the additional cost of transporting them. We are not adding or taking away any more students. We now have the additional 250 days, and we have nearly $200,000 in rent annually.
And our current transportation costs, if I remember, it's significant. It's roughly in the $90,000 a year range of what we spend to transport students to the current campuses. So that would be a significant savings as we're now transporting them within the district.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thanks.
Mrs. Bacon?
And that number of 30, is that fairly consistent year to year, or have we gone up and down, or what does that look like?
I think it depends on the year. I would say that over this past year, it's been averaging 30 at any given moment. I don't have the pre-pandemic, because in the past 2 years, that number has changed significantly. I don't know the exact numbers pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I guess it would be a little hard to tell during the pandemic, so.
I had wanted to point something out, and then I do have a question also. What I appreciate, in addition to the cost savings that we have with transportation, also alleviates the transportation time, which when we're low on bus drivers is helpful there, to not use so much time. And even more importantly, kids aren't going to be on the bus for as long. How wonderful if we can just transport the kids within our own district. We know how far that is, as opposed to sending them far outside of our district and having kids on buses for that long. So I appreciate that we're gonna have that opportunity to help our students on the busing. And I had one question about the lease, because it talks about no modifications without our approval, which makes sense. And then it seemed like it talked about if they construct new classrooms. Is that something that they think in the future they may need? Would that be like internal moving walls or something like that is what they're anticipating a need for?
Yes, the current office space has a large area that has been utilized, broken up into cubicles for however many years now. And those cubicles have been removed and it's now an open space. And they anticipate it's large enough that at a certain point, as they increase their enrollment, they will want to subdivide that space up to use it as classroom space.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is items for approval. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Mature, Governing Board members, Cabinet, and guests. Item H2. In this item, we recommend contract templates for the employee groups. Dr. Holmes will briefly summarize the changes and similarities between the different contracts and recommend for approval.
Madam President, members of the board, we are recommending the approval of the 22-23 employee contracts. There is one slight change to the contracts this year, and that pertains to interim language. And the reason for the change is very simply that within our system, we're differentiating between groups in terms of their interim status. So it's a simple change. With that in mind, I do need to recommend an amendment to the contracts that you have before you. And for the purposes of approval, I believe that can be accomplished by a motion to approve with the recommended amendment. So bear with me while I set that up. The amendment is going to pertain to Section H of the continuing certified contract, Section H of the probationary certified contract, Section F of the education support professional contract, and Section F of the education support professional exempt contract. Madam President, members of the board, the last sentence in the stated sections of the stated contracts is identical, and the recommended amendment is that the last sentence in the stated sections of the stated contracts should end with the phrase, except that this does not apply to teachers on a continuing contract or other employees who are permanent employees per the bargaining agreement. With that, I'll take any questions. We do recommend approval with the recommended amendment.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the changes and or additions to the contracts for 2023 as presented and amended?
Yes, so moved. And I think before, are we going to roll call vote? How are we doing the voting?
Well, now I was going to ask for any member wishing to make comments or,
Okay. So I'm going to move that it, make a motion with the addition of, except that this does not apply to teachers on a continuing contract or other employees who are permanent employees per the bargaining agreement. And that is section H for certified,
F for ESP.
and section F for the ESP.
That's correct.
does anyone have any comments or questions?
I do. What does that mean? What are we changing there? What's the change?
It just means that the whole section that is pertaining to the notice regarding the interim status, which would be a non-renewal notice, it does not apply to the employee stated in the recommendation, which would be teachers on a continuing contract or other employees who are considered permanent employees per the bargaining agreements. More explanation? Interim status contracts are intended to be for 1 year only. So they are not contracts that are renewed. So this section outlines that if a contract is an interim status contract, it is the board's notice of non-renewal at the point of signing the contract. However, that would be in conflict with state statute regarding continuing teacher contracts, and it would be in conflict with bargaining language. So the amendment that I just asked, recommended that you approve, would exclude those individuals from the notice.
So it excludes interim employees from the notice.
No, it excludes employees on an interim contract who are either on a continuing teacher contract or who are considered permanent employees per the bargaining agreement.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to follow up with that. So
That's fine.
clarifying, so someone in that position may be a permanent employee, but maybe on an interim assignment? Is that
Yes,
where the
correct.
clarification would be?
Yeah,
And you wouldn't want, just because their current assignment is interim, does
That's
not
correct.
make them an interim employee. They still retain their permanent employee status.
That's correct. So,
Okay.
Ding,
so
ding, ding, ding.
you got it?
Now I
You
got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is another item for approval. Dr. Bales.
Item H3, President, Mature, Governing Board members, Cabinet, and guests. In this item, we recommend the Certified Performance-Based Pay Plan. This plan is only for members of the certified bargaining group, such as teachers, nurses, psychologists, and related services. Dr. Holmes will present a brief summary of the changes and recommendations for approval.
Madam President, members of the board, we are recommending the approval of the 2022-2023 performance-based plan without amendment. I will share with you that there are no changes other than dates to the plan, with the exception of the amount, and I would like to highlight that. The full amount for the upcoming school year is $5,274, which is an increase of a little over $600. And that is cause for celebration because at the beginning of the budget season, we were anticipating that we would probably see a reduction of around $600 to $700. So for our teachers, it's very significant that not only was it not a reduction, but it was a pretty good increase. With that, I'll take questions. We are recommending approval.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 performance-based pay plan as presented?
So moved.
Any member of the board with questions or comments? Mrs. Greenberg.
And Dr. Holmes, can you remind us, or remind some folks, who sets that amount?
It's the state.
Okay.
Is it the JLBC? Or no?
I'm gonna make a technical correction to that, just because I'm technical sometimes. We set the amount of 5274. It is based off the amount that is set by the state through JLBC and Joint Legislative Budget Committee of the per pupil amount that we will receive for the upcoming year. The per pupil amount that we will receive this upcoming year was more than we had anticipated, and only slightly less than last year. And if you remember last year, by last year I mean this year, by this year I mean next year. It's only $25 less than what we actually received this year with the catch-up payment. We had that big catch-up payment this year, which is why we thought it would be a significant lesser amount next year. It is not, in fact, that much less. In fact, we're able to do more.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any other questions? I do have one question. How long have we had performance-based pay in state, in our district?
That the performance-based pay would have been initiated as an outcome of Prop 301, which was voter approved in, I believe, the year 2000. So it's been around for quite some time.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is approval of changes and/or additions to the bargaining agreements for 2022-2023. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Matura, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. In this item, we recommend compensation for each employee group for the 22-23 school year. To summarize these packages, Dr. Holmes will present each one individually, and then we will ask for a roll call vote for each package. Dr. Holmes.
Madam President, members of the board, item 4A, PVSEA ESP bargaining agreement. We're recommending approval of the bargaining agreement with the following highlights: 1% increase to base pay, a 1,000 one-time return to work and retention incentive, 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive. Additional increase in hourly rates for bus drivers, dispatchers, and routers to make permanent the hard-to-fill addenda they received this year on your approval earlier this fall. 1 additional day of paid training for special education paraeducators and members of transportation. A one-time hard-to-fill addenda for bus aides, community education, childcare associates, and special education paraeducators, ranging from $530 to $680, and MOAs and language changes for which we came to consensus during the bargaining process.
Okay, we do have one public comment card. Michelle Courtwright. And you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
President Matura, Governing Board, Dr. Bales, and Cabinet. My name is Michelle Courtwright, and I am the president of the Paradise Valley Support Employees Association. I wanted to let you know we did ratify at 98%. We had a large group of individuals who actually chose not to vote. And to me, that spoke a lot, especially with what I received. I wish I could say bargaining went well this year, but that wouldn't be an honest statement. This year, it was very challenging in so many ways. But I think the biggest issue was compensation. I think everyone in the room knew that employees were not going to be happy with the compensation outcome, and they were right. I've spent the last 5 days responding to employees that are angry with me, my team, and the district. They feel defeated. They can't afford to stay in a job that they love in a place where they make a difference. As their advocate, I've been trying to figure out where to direct my anger and who is responsible for this mess. Well, earlier today, I realized that no one in this room is at fault. The fault lies with our politicians, and until we can convince them to fully fund public schools, that it should be their top priority, we're fighting a losing battle. I know we did everything we could at the table for our employees, and I'm grateful to the board for giving us the opportunity, and I truly wish we could have done more. My hope is our politicians can get along long enough to pass the type of budget needed to fully fund our schools and its employees, and that somehow we can get back to the table because there is money there, and we just need them to give it to us. Thank you.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the PVSEA ESP bargaining agreement for the 2022-2023 year as presented, and this will be a roll call vote.
So moved.
Any member of the board wishing to make a comment or question? Mr. Laney?
So I would just like to say that as a board, if you had been in the meetings with us, you could see how we anguished over this over multiple meetings. Based on what we had to work with, I feel we did the best that we could to increase it as much as we could. And I have to say, it's actually more than what we were expecting in the meetings that I was at. I fully understand what it's like to live under a school teacher's salary, as my dad was a teacher. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I remember buying my own clothes as a high school student because my parents could only afford 2 pairs of jeans for me. We see emails from community members asking, how to fix this, or asking us to fix this or that. We're imperfect. We're doing the best we can. I would strongly encourage anybody in the district to look over the budget, to help us, help you, to offer constructive suggestions to help us figure out how to do better on these things. And that's what I'd like to say.
Mrs. Bacon?
I just would like to say that the state is sitting on a $5.3 billion rainy day fund. And the fact that we are in this situation is extremely disheartening. There is the ability to improve. There is the ability to give us more money. I also want to say that we are a unique district in the sense of we're a declining enrollment district. So we do not have the resources that some other school districts have because they have increased, they are increasing their numbers of students because they're building more housing developments. There's lots of things that are going on in districts that surround us that we can't match because of our declining enrollment. And that's partially my fault. I still live in the house that I lived in when my kids were little. And I'm renovating it, so I'm going to live there forever now. So there's so many things that, as Mr. Laney said, that go into this that are out of our control. And I really wish we could have done more.
Mrs. Greenberg?
I was going to say this when we vote since I was first, but I'll just go ahead. And I want to say that I very much appreciate Mrs. Cartwright's comments. I appreciate the 98% ratification, but I don't think anybody up here, anybody down there feels that this is adequate. It is what we can do right now, and we know that. As Mrs. Bacon just said, the state is sitting on a $5.3 billion, I think you're generous in calling it a rainy day fund. And I know that there is a great deal of chatter or talk or the questions always asked when we say fully fund, and then the legislators who want us to sit on 5.3 or give it back say, well, what's fully fund? Well, we're sitting anywhere between 46th to 49th. So let's at least get to national average. And in that state, I don't know, Mrs. Berrigan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that would mean at least an additional $5,000, or is it $7,000? That $5,000 per student.
Per student, an additional $10,000.
Oh, excuse me, additional 10. It's gone up since I looked last. $10,000 per student to get us to the national average. We have it in that 5.3 billion. So the fact is that there is money in this state to support our students and support our teachers and support our schools. And I wish that rather than try and pass a skinny budget, which didn't happen, there is meaningful discussion down at the legislature about what to do with 5.3 billion. Thank you.
Mrs. Case, I can't see you, but are you interested?
Yes, I am. Thank
Okay.
you. Been listening to all the comments, and I just have to say that as a board, we've been struggling with trying to pay employees more for years and years. And at some point, it's really hard to do things out of the goodness of your heart. And with inflation going up, I understand all those things. The employees make such a difference in the lives of our children. They've made the difference in my children's lives, whether in a variety of course, teachers, but all the other employees also make such a difference in the lives of our students. And usually you go into education in any form because you want to make children's lives better. And I appreciate all of their work. And I wish somehow we could magically wave a wand to make things better. But that isn't going to happen without changes that are out of our control. And I want to thank all of our employees for all they do, on what they do it on. And so we worked every which way we could when we had meetings on this to increase pay in all the ways we could. And it was the best we could do. So that's my comment. Thank you.
And I do believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that in the contracted language that we have today, we do have built-in contingencies. So we are hopeful that when the budget does pass, that it's not the skinny budget and it is a meaningful conversation in what they can put into education. And if that money does come, it is already pre-allocated and will be going to the staff and the teachers in our district. And that language is already included in what we would be approving today. So it would not require any additional voting at that time.
You are correct. That is in the contingency language in the contracts that you approved in item 2.
Thank you. We already approved the contingency.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the clarification. So we can be hopeful that that meaningful discussion is happening downtown, looking at what is funded versus what is required of the district and required of our staff and teachers. And if we are able to compensate at a higher level, that would be fantastic. And I look forward to the day one day when we can celebrate at these meetings because we do have enough to make a difference. So with that, may I please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Madam President, members of the board, we are also recommending the approval of item 4B, the PVEA Certified Bargaining Agreement. Highlights are a 1% base pay increase, a $1,000 one-time return to work and retention incentive, a 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive, 2 additional paid professional development days, in addition to MOAs and language changes for which we came to consensus during bargaining.
We do have a public comment card for Susan Seep.
Sorry, I was so blown away by the art today that I forgot I was going to speak tonight. So it's late. President Ventura, Governing Board, Dr. Bales, and Cabinet, thank you tonight for allowing me to address you on behalf of the certified educators in PVUSD. I don't have to remind you how tough the last 2 years have been on them, as they've been on our support professionals, our administrators, our community, and in particular, our kids. We come together in October every year to complete an extensive survey that elicits the concerns and interests of everyone in our diverse group. From there, the bargaining team works with the PVA Executive Board to read each and every comment, try and distill and concentrate the interests, and then share them with the district's leadership in November, while they share theirs with us, along with the realist of realities, the budget. Everyone shares the same interest to try and create the best possible learning environment for our students' development and well-being. That starts with employees that feel valued, and we feel valued when we feel heard. And that's why I thank the district so deeply for the process. Beginning in January, we spent several full days together going over the issues that the certified group has taken from the survey, and we weigh them against the realities. We share stories and interests, possible solutions until we come to a consensus. It isn't always easy, and it definitely isn't always fun, but it's incredibly rewarding to get through it. I'm pleased to be able to report that this year's bargaining agreement was ratified. What that shows is the trust that the membership has in the bargaining team and in the district's willingness to bargain in good faith and do their very best to improve the working conditions, continue to provide the best pay and benefits we can, and hold on to the greatest, most dedicated staff in the state. In addition to that, I do want to say that our members know how hard you all work to find every penny that goes into compensation, and they do a lot of work outside of the school day on their own over the summer and at night, doing the only thing that we can do, and that is really try and influence the state legislature, the governor, and others to try and get pro-education candidates into the legislature and try and keep the interests of private schools from stealing our funding. Thank you.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and or additions to the PVEA Certified Bargaining Agreement for the 2022-2023 as presented?
So moved.
Any members with any comments?
I just want to say everything I said with the ESPs, it just goes for all employees, right? I think we all want to say that. So just know that.
Ditto. Okay, then may I please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Before I go on to 4C, it's probably worth mentioning because it's not part of this approval, but it is somewhat related. But just as a reminder, no increases to health insurance premiums for our employees as part of the efforts we're making to do the best that we can. 4C, item 4C, Madam President, members of the board, we are recommending your approval of the ESS bargaining agreement. Highlights are a 1% increase to base pay, a $1,000 one-time return to work and retention incentive, a 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive, and minor language changes for which we came to consensus during the bargaining process.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and or additions to the Executive Support Staff Bargaining Agreement for 2022-2023 as presented?
So moved.
Any comments? May I please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, we're asking for your, requesting your approval for item 4D, the PVP bargaining agreement. Highlights are a 1% base increase, 1% increase to base pay, $1,000 one-time return to work and retention incentive, a 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive, and minor language changes for which we came to consensus during bargaining.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the principal bargaining agreement for 2022-2023 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Chisholm, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, we are asking your approval for item 4E, the COA bargaining agreement. Highlights are a 1% increase to base pay, a $1,000 one-time return to work and incentive, retention incentive, a 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive, and minor language changes for which we came to consensus during bargaining.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the Central Office Administrators Bargaining Agreement for 2022-2023 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Chisholm, may I please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, we're asking your approval this evening for item 4F, the CLA bargaining agreement. Highlights are a 1% increase to base pay, a $1,000 one-time return to work and retention incentive, a 3.34% one-time return to work and retention incentive, and minor language changes.
May I please have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the Cabinet Level Administrators Bargaining Agreement for 2022-2023 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Chisholm, may I please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon,
Aye.
Mr. Laney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Case.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And that concludes that portion. Next on the agenda is approval of strategic planning, commitments, and portrait of a graduate with Dr. Bales.
Thank you. Before we go on, I did want to express my deepest appreciation to our bargaining team leaders from our stakeholder groups. I want you to know that I understand and hear it was not an easy process. And I thank you for continuing to build trust and work with us. We are committed to seeing our employees succeed. So thank you to our bargaining leaders in this process. I'd also like to, President Matura, governing board members, tonight we'll provide you with the final version of the strategic goals and commitments and portrait of a graduate. With your approval, we'll move forward to phase 3 of this process and begin to develop district-wide initiatives and superintendent goals. Dr. Jaros will present for your approval.
President Matura, Dr. Bales, Governing Board and Cabinet, tonight I present to you updates to our strategic plan. And as Dr. Bales just mentioned, we will be seeking your approval. As a reminder, the project started in the fall and is the result of our design team, which includes representation from each of our stakeholder groups. Sorry, I'm a slide off here. In addition to reviewing changes to our strategic goals and commitments, I'm also providing you a look at the publication that our marketing department is designing to help promote and support the strategic plan with our community. The opening of the brochure will begin with a message from Dr. Bales to explain the value of the strategic plan and the process used to create it, and it will also have a brief overview of the district. The publication will then identify the vision and mission, which you approved earlier this year. Then we will also identify our values and action statements that emphasize the importance of being student-focused, innovative, collaborative, acting with integrity, recognizing growth, and being respectful. At the last governing board meeting, I presented the goal areas, and I will spend some time identifying changes from that last reading. Once finalized and approved, the brochure will present these goals and commitments in a format similar to what you see on this current slide right here. Our first goal is the student experience. In this draft that you are reviewing today, we replaced the word interventions with supports, as it encompasses a broader range of opportunities to help our students be successful. And we also replaced the word agility with readiness. Our second goal area is staff experience. Since the last presentation, we added celebrate to commitment 2.2. And at the end of 2.5, we added to serve the needs of every learner. In goal 3, educational environment, 3.4 and 3.5, if you remember, both began with the word create. To change things up, we changed 3.4 to begin with build. And we made similar changes to goal 4, community strength, so that the commitments were not all starting with the same words. In goal 5, we restructured 5.5 to read, ensure inclusive practices in the decision-making process by involving stakeholders as appropriate. And in goal 6, we reordered these commitments as some of them were similar in nature, so it made sense to put them next to each other so that it read a little bit more cohesively. And we also simplified commitment 6.1 for clarity purposes. The brochure will also include our portrait of a graduate, which was shared at the last governing board meeting and at a study session. And that identifies those character traits that we hope for our graduates to all leave here with, including being a creative thinker, a critical thinker, collaborative, community-minded, ethical, and resilient. Those are the changes to our goals and commitments, and we are asking for our goals and commitments, and we are asking for your approval to them, as well as a portrait of a graduate. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
May I please have a motion to approve the strategic planning, commitments, and portrait of a graduate as presented?
So moved.
And anyone wish to make any comments or questions? Mr. Laney?
So I really appreciate all the work that you put into this. It looks really good. I think you think I was joking about putting the chucks in for the shoes. I was joking, but anyway, maybe I could have gotten that across better. But it looks good, so I appreciate you making all the changes to it.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Yeah, I want to add my thanks to the design team as well. Having facilitated strategic planning in the past and having served on the district strategic planning team once upon a time, I know how involved the process is, and I know that but I know how exhilarating a process it is as well. And I believe that that comes through in what we have here. And I'm excited about where this is going, and I appreciate that we have a strategic plan. So thank you, everybody.
Mrs. Bacon?
I also would like to convey my thanks to the committee members who worked on this. It was hours and hours and hours. They may have put in more hours this part up to now than we have collectively. The meetings were long, they were involved. I know it required a lot of thinking, and that's hard to do and exhausting sometimes. So I just want to thank everyone who is on that team, who worked so hard, including all of our employees who put tons of time and effort into this. And I echo Ann. I am glad we have a strategic plan. Now, let's keep it alive.
Mrs. Casey, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. I just want to say that the amount of energy and work and thought that went into this strategic plan is quite amazing. And I appreciate the corrections that were made with the little tiny contributions this board made. And I just, I'm grateful that it has been so thoughtful and that we have been able to see the results of much hard work. And I just want it to go to work and do and make all of those processes that come from the strategic plan start moving. So thank you very much, all of the committee and all of the cabinet members who have made this look good. And we're hoping we're trying to do what's best for children and students, and this certainly is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
I wanted to reiterate Mrs. Bacon's sentiments that now that we have this, it's not a in the drawer document. We've all committed to having this be a living document that this gives us. I really can see pathways forward from the strategic plan, and that's really exciting. And seeing the work and progress and come down to this, and seeing in this nice slick marketing piece, it's really exciting. It's great to have it be where we are today. And I can just envision where some of these marketing pieces are posted. And I really like the look of it and the continuity. And I like how I talked last time about the color scheme and how the shading and how it all comes together with our new website. And so I'm very pleased with how it all came together. So thank you. Thank you for your work. And with that, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is gifts and donations. And our district is very fortunate to have community members and families and people in our district who are interested in supporting our schools and go above and beyond and make donations. So appreciate every donation that comes to our students and wanted to point out a few, just highlight a few tonight. Copper Canyon Elementary School PTO did provide $1,000 for copy paper for their schools. North Ranch PTA provided 30 TVs on rolling stands for their classrooms in the amount of $24,963. Brightside Benefit made a donation of 23 Dell laptops in the amount of valued at $10,000 to the CREST program at PV High School. At Sunset Canyon Elementary School, the Dorito Partners did give $1,000 to be used for student supplies, PBIS rewards, and teacher resources. And at Vista Verde Middle School, Daryl and Michelle Carlson donated classroom library books in the amount of $2,589. So thank you again. Appreciate all the donations to our district. And may I please have a motion for acceptance of gifts and donations?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, I turned my mic off.
Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Matura, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. And tonight we'll provide you the work of the calendar committee. Special thanks to those that participated. It's one of those also arduous tasks that happens every 4 years. And the recommendation for the 4 school year calendars beginning in 2023-24 will be presented tonight by Dr. Jarris for first reading and discussion only.
President Matura, Governing Board, Dr. Bales and Cabinet. Tonight I present to you the Calendar Committee's recommendation for school calendars for 2023-24, 2024-25, 2025-26, and 2026-27. The Calendar Committee is charged with the task of developing calendars that adhere to state law requirements and legal holidays, and also consider religious observations and past experiences with calendar design. The Calendar Committee included representatives from each of our stakeholder groups, and I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of my executive assistant, Tara Sorensen, who spent countless hours preparing calendar templates and counting days each quarter and semester to make sure we've done it correctly. It's amazing how everything doesn't always add up to 180 when you think it does. I will be summarizing briefly summarizing our timeline. We met virtually in January to review the committee's charge, governing board policy, and a calendar pre-survey to gather stakeholder feedback on specific calendar concepts. In February, we reviewed those survey results and created 3 calendar options to present to the community. In March, we presented those 3 options to the community through a survey and received input on their preferences. And tonight, I am presenting the committee's recommendations based on that feedback. Just to give a little bit of background, the Calendar Committee works to adhere to several specific parameters as outlined in the Governing Board Policy ICR. These include the first semester ends before winter break. Spring break occurs after the 3rd quarter. We attempt to honor all major religious holidays. We have 1 calendar that serves pre-K through 12th grade. And we try to balance the semesters when possible, taking into account that the 2nd semester needs to incorporate statewide testing. Our policy also asks that we give consideration to starting school as late as possible, which might include starting school on a date other than on a Monday. I've lost the slide here. And also please note that the professional development and parent-teacher conference early release days are not part of the calendar committee's initial calendar. Those are added after the final calendar is approved. As we do this process every 4 years, we reviewed some common themes found in previous calendar committee discussions. Previous community responses indicated an appreciation for a midweek start for the first day of school. Having the Wednesday off before Thanksgiving, honoring religious holidays, ending the first semester before winter break, and finishing school before Memorial Day. As I mentioned, we presented a pre-survey to our community at the end of January. We had 4,728 responses from across all stakeholder groups. And in those results, we found some common themes. There was an interest in a full week fall break, either after the first quarter or during the week of Thanksgiving. The results also showed that breaks throughout the year were more important than a later start date to the school year. There was a strong preference for the school year to end before Memorial Day. And there was a little interest in an extended fall spring break where you have a fall break of 2 weeks and a spring break of 2 weeks. And in the open-ended comments, there was an interest in, of course, starting later in the school year and an alignment to neighboring school district calendars. After studying the results, the calendar committee finalized 3 sets of calendars, each with a relatively unique identity. Option 1 included a full week break during the week of Thanksgiving. Option 2 included a full week fall break after the first quarter, typically in October. And option 3 was a traditional calendar in that we called it a traditional calendar in that it's very similar to the current calendar that we are currently using. It is important to note that while identifying, let me go back a slide here. It's important to note that while identifying features of options 1 and 2 were a full week break in the fall, that was not possible for the 2025-2026 school year. That particular school year had several fall holidays that fell on a Tuesday or a Thursday. As a result, the 2025-2026 school year used the same traditional model for all 3 options. And I can demonstrate that when we present the actual school year model calendars. We presented these options to the community in the form of a survey in March. We received 4,267 responses. As you can see, the breakdown by stakeholder groups. If you are doing the math, you will note that the numbers from the individual stakeholder groups add up to more than 4,267 because people were allowed to choose more than one category depending on which ones they fell into. When asked to indicate their first preference for a calendar, 49% selected option 2 that had the full week fall break after the first quarter, and options 1 and 3 were very similar, and the response is close to 25%. And this chart shows the breakdown by stakeholder group, and you can see that preference 2 was fairly consistent as the first preference among all the stakeholder groups. Based on stakeholder feedback, the calendar committee recommends option 2 with the full week fall break for governing board approval. And the following slides will show these calendar years. You can see that in 2023-2024, the first day of school will be on August 3rd. The fall break would be October 9th through the 13th. And the last day of school is May 23rd before Memorial Day. We'll also note that there was an interest in aligning our breaks with neighboring districts. In this particular year, our fall and spring breaks do align with the Scottsdale Unified School District. In 2024-2025, the first day of school is August 5th with a fall break during the first full week of October. And again, the last day of school is prior to Memorial Day. 2025-2026, this is the year where, as you can see, we have a holiday on September 23rd, which is a Tuesday, on October 2nd, which is a Thursday, and then on November 11th, which is a Tuesday. And unless we wanted a week where we were coming to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we took Thursday off, and then we came back to school for Friday, we would be not able to put a full week fall break in there unless we were to push back the start of school into July. So this is more of a traditional model. And then in 2026, 2027, the first day of school is August 4th with a fall break from October 12th through the 16th. Again, this is a first reading of this recommendation. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Okay,
Um,
Mrs. Case?
Thank you. The work on the calendar committee is arduous, hard, laborious, and more complicated than you can ever believe. This is one of the binders I have kept because it's so complicated. I have long fought that wording there in there to start as late in August as possible was because I pushed for that years ago when they started that the parameters for them to work within. I do have a comment. The more times I've spoken to many elementary teachers about this through the years, and the more times you break up the school week, so you have 3 days here, 2 days here, and then you have 4 days, and then you have 4 days, and you finally get 5 days. It's more disruptive for elementary, from what teachers have told me, than any other thing, because their normal flow of what they do every day is disrupted. So that's always my concern, but working with the calendar is very difficult. I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Mr. Laney?
Yeah, just really quick, since this didn't line up with what our family wanted, I might be sleeping on the couch tonight.
Yeah. Nothing is being officially approved tonight. This is for just the read. Mrs. Greenberg?
Kind of piggybacking on what Mrs. Case said, I do like, in terms of where we were able to bring in that 1 week of fall break, most of these calendars lose more of that disruptive element of a day here, a day there. And I also want to thank the committee. It's always been an interesting one, and contentious, I guess, sometimes. I don't know if that applies to this year. But I'm really glad that we had, a good number of our community, of our parents and our community our stakeholder groups weighing in. And I'm glad that we're able to take that feedback and work it into the calendars that you are recommending.
It was a very harmonious group.
Oh, good.
And all of them commented, I had no idea this was so difficult. So.
The calendar committee was the first district committee I ever sat on. And it was not calm at all. It was before we had the parameters. It was before we had that policy, and it was difficult. So I think that the policy, the parameters that we put in there have helped a lot and made the committee less contentious. And if I was a normal person, I would have just turned and ran and never gone back and done anything in terms of district committees again, but that's not who I am. So here I am.
I thought it went well because of leadership.
I'm sure you did, Dr. Jarris.
I really liked seeing the survey results, because what I in my head thought would have been the most popular was not the most popular. So it was really interesting, and seeing that it came down with all the stakeholder groups were all, it was fascinating read for me to see that. And it did feel a bit early to me in the year, and I know that this is Mrs. Case's every year we talk about this, the beginning of the school year. But I did notice that it is close in alignment with our neighboring districts, which I know for families is really helpful, because sometimes if we are pushing back a week, there's that week in between where all the camps in the valley end because everyone else is going back to school, and there's no options for the PV families. So so I think it's nice that we're kind of in alignment there. It's helpful for all that childcare. So thank you for all your work. I know what a complete puzzle this must be to put together. So thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Yes, Mrs. Case.
Susan. Yes, thank you. I'd raise my hand, but you can't see it. I'd like to make one other comment. The difficulty I have found through the years is trying to align it so and I'm glad we're a unified school district, but we're trying to align it so families can be together in holidays, in summer break, so there's time for enrichment activities in the summer. That's why when you start too soon in August, you cut off when the swimming pools are open, etc. We just have to be mindful that our calendar affects society and our community a lot more than we think it does. And so we always have to look at those holiday breaks. Like I would love to start later, but then we would get out later. And it's more important. I've talked to so many students about this, that the semester ends before the winter break. And so, anyway, and that aligns with colleges, and having had children through elementary school through college all at the same time, and you want those breaks to happen at the same time. So calendars are hard. I want to thank the calendar committee again. They're very difficult. Thank you.
Next is items for discussion. Dr. Bales.
Item 8I2, President Mature, Governing Board members, tonight will provide you the work of the Family Student Handbook Committee and recommendations for the 22-23 school year. Mr. Long will present for first reading and discussion only tonight.
Good evening, President Matura, Governing Board members, Dr. Bales and Cabinet. Tonight is the first reading for you to consider changes made to the Family Student Handbook for the 2022-23 school year. First, I would like to thank our Parent Student Handbook Committee from our stakeholder groups for their hard work and input on the revised handbook, and a huge thank you to Dr. Von Nechten as the facilitator of this committee and all of his hard work while serving as Student Services Director for Secondary. I would like to begin by reviewing the timeline and process for this annual revision. In January 2022, input was sought from directors for changes due to statute, policy, or regulation. In February, the committee met twice. During the first meeting, the committee reviewed the handbook for understanding from an administrator, parent, and teacher perspective. During the second meeting, the committee reviewed and assessed recommended revisions from committee members. In March, a redline version of the handbook was provided to the committee for final review and agreement of recommended revisions. For the second part of this reading, I will review the summary of those revisions that were agreed upon. We removed the parent definition from page 2. We removed parents and replaced with parent/guardian throughout the document. Removed the pandemic information from page 2. We removed the guarantee from page 3. We updated the superintendent's letter from page 4 and added PV School's portrait of a graduate when approved on page 4. And that was all due to the work that we completed surrounding the mission, vision, and our strategic plan. We removed and added language for digital citizenship and digital etiquette on page 10. We added language for transgender procedures in regard to Title IX on page 15. Oops. We removed and added language for parent resources on page 17. We removed and added language for public concern on page 17. We removed and added language for teacher qualifications for Title I schools on page 22. Added language for student discipline grades K through 4 on page 34. We updated the board member information and added language for governing board general information on page 39. We updated the front cover title page and retitled the document. If you recall, last year we had some discussion around parent student handbook versus family student handbook, and we made those changes for this school year. We updated the table of contents and the pagination upon governing board approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Mrs. Bacon?
Yeah, I was looking at the parent resource section. I think that's page 17. We certainly have a a lot of resources for parents in our schools. And so I'd like to see in addition, I'd like us to consider adding our school counselors, our school social workers, the people who are in our buildings who provide that kind of support, nurses, so forth. I'd also like to see us have a more comprehensive directory of community services that are out there that work with students and work with families to support them in education. So I think that we've got a lot of resources that we're kind of missing out on that could give our parents some additional assistance as needed.
Mr. Laney?
Sure, I have two things. Page 18, public concerns, complaints about personal procedure. You used the word complainant in that instead of parent/guardians. That seems inconsistent with the rest of the document. What was the reasoning behind that?
I believe the reasoning behind that was complainant wasn't just the parent, it could be anyone
Okay.
other than that.
So that's okay. That's what I was wondering if that was why you included it. And then the other item I have is on page 27 for off-campus misconduct. Let me get to it. In the examples section, it's inconsistent with ARS 13-3111, section B. And if you want me to go into details right now, I can. Otherwise, you can, you'll be able to go up and read that law. For sake of time, I don't want to go into details, but
We'll
it's pretty
check that
easy to
out.
see. Yeah.
Mrs. Case, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right. This was one of the committees that I had served on earlier. And yeah, it is there's a lot that every year needs to be looked at just to be in alignment with changes that have been made to our board policies. So I noticed some of those changes, so that's always good in there. And I did notice, I'm gonna call out the new cover. I noticed that coloring technique going on there that we see in our website. I forget what you call it, sunsetting or something. There's the gradient. So, so I did notice that that is being carried through. So I appreciate that continuity. Thank you very much. Oh, and Mrs. Greenberg.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually just wanted to echo what Mrs. Bacon had been talking about in terms of the parent resource section. I agree. I think if we can expand upon that and sort of balance what we're talking about in terms of a resource and better perhaps define that. UPC programming, I think, is excellent, and that is a type of resource, but I think some of the things Mrs. Bacon was talking about go into a different path on resources. So I think if we can balance that or better, better underline what we're talking about, I think would be great.
Okay, and we next have another item for discussion. Dr. Bales?
Thank you, President Matura. Governing board members, cabinet, and guests. Tonight will present the committee work for additions to the Advanced Placement Literature List. With more than 100 books previously approved for 11th and 12th graders to read in AP classes, and only a handful or so labeled sensitive, tonight's list for discussion is in addition to the existing list. We are a public school district with a diverse board and even more diverse community. I appreciate the work of this committee to provide parents information about the literature in these AP classes and the choices available for their son or daughter to read in these advanced classes. Dr. Corson and his team will present for first reading and discussion only tonight.
Good evening, President Matura, governing board members, Dr. Bales, cabinet, and guests. Tonight is the first reading of the literature list recommendations for advanced placement. Our two facilitators of this committee, Jen Young, who was our secondary English language arts curriculum facilitator, and Jenny Jarris, assistant principal at Paradise Valley High School, are here this evening to present to you the committee's process and recommendations and answer your questions.
Good evening. Tonight, we are here on behalf of the committee to recommend titles to be added to the district literature list for advanced placement courses. These are college-level courses that are taught in 11th and 12th grades. The majority of the books are being recommended for the 12th grade AP Literature course, but there is one nonfiction book, Unbroken, that is being recommended for the 11th grade AP Language course. AP Language is a writing and rhetoric course. Therefore, teachers typically focus on nonfiction works. These novels are not to be taught by teachers of other courses, as they are designated only for AP students. However, AP teachers may choose to teach novels from the current 11th or 12th grade literature lists. Additional titles may be added to the AP literature list over time by submitting them for review during each literature list update, which occurs every 2 years. Our presentation will include our purpose, background on advanced placement courses, committee membership and timeline, community feedback, evaluation criteria, our review process, and curriculum recommendations. The purpose of our presentation is to share with the governing board a first reading of the process and recommendations of the AP Literature List Committee. Since this list of titles is designated only for advanced placement courses, the committee thought it was important to provide some background information about the AP Literature and AP Language and Composition courses. These are advanced college-level courses that are taken by choice in grades 11 and 12. AP students are expected to read a wide variety of literature in order to prepare for the free response question on the AP exam. The College Board does not publish a list of literature because they believe that students should be able to critically analyze a wide range of literary works. Although the College Board does not provide a list of titles, they reference specific titles on the AP exam. There are lists available online of titles that have been referenced on the AP exam. The only 2 titles that have not been referenced on the AP exam are Unbroken and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. All other titles being recommended tonight have been referenced on the exam, many multiple times. Prior to this update, AP teachers were allowed to teach novels that were not on the literature list in order to provide a wider array of literary choices for the AP exam. In order to provide transparency and partner more effectively with parents, this committee was tasked with reviewing AP teacher submissions and making recommendations of books to be added to the literature list for AP courses.
The members of the committee included facilitators, advanced placement teachers, administrators, and parents from our high schools throughout the district. We would like to thank the committee members for their dedication to the process. They spent hours reading, analyzing, and reflecting on the novels. In addition, they completed rubrics and participated in robust discussion at every meeting. We appreciate their investment in making recommendations that are best for our students and families. Our timeline, teachers submitted titles in December and the committee was formed in January. We met several times between January and March to discuss the novels that were being reviewed. Between meetings, committee members completed the work necessary to prepare for each discussion. The committee gathered feedback from the community by posting a Google form on the website and allowing for public comment at 2 of our discussion meetings. Community members could submit their feedback through the form, and they could also attend our meetings where they could speak and share their feedback with the committee under open meeting procedures that we created. We received a variety of feedback forms with various stakeholders, including students, parents, and teachers. Within those forms, there were 16 positive comments that pointed out the literary value of several of the books and indicated that they would like to see the books added to our literature list. There were 12 comments that pointed out sensitive content in the books and believed that they were not appropriate for all students. 5 comments suggested that we mark specific books as sensitive and notify parents of the sensitive content. The committee considered all community feedback, including the public comment, at 2 of our meetings. We responded to community feedback by doing the following. We assigned 1 to 2 more committee members to read and complete the rubric for each book that received conflicting feedback. We discussed the book at length and considered community feedback, and we reviewed community feedback again before voting on recommendations. There were several criteria on the rubric which we used to evaluate each novel. The following items were considered. Novel aligns with educational standards and curriculum. The committee reviewed whether or not the novel has credible teaching resources available, if it's aligned with standards, if it has cross-curricular connections, and if it's an appropriate reading level for advanced students in a college level course. Represents high-quality literature. The committee reviewed whether or not the novel has thought-provoking and universal themes, well-developed literary devices, a well-respected author, favorable reviews, and an artistic style. Represents diverse literature. The committee also reviewed whether or not the novel has an authentic voice, diverse characters and perspectives, unique experiences, and would foster engagement for students. Appropriate subject matter for the grade level. When the committee considered whether the subject matter was appropriate, they looked first to ensure that the sensitive content was not gratuitous, but aligned to the purpose of the novel. For example, in one of the novels, profanity and violence are used in some scenes, but it serves to provide an accurate representation of the soldiers and the time period, and it also develops the theme of the impact of war. In addition, the committee reviewed whether or not the main character provides an authentic voice, the novel contains positive messages, and the content, whether sensitive or not, is appropriate for the maturity level of the audience.
Our process for adding titles to the literature list is comprehensive and thorough. The title submission form was completed by teachers in December, and 11 titles were submitted for consideration by the committee. The committee discussed our process and rubric at the first meeting, and we also assigned titles to be read and reviewed by each committee member before the next meeting. At the next meeting, the committee members color-coded each novel. The color codes were based on the rubric and evaluation criteria that were previously shared. As committee members recommended a color for each novel, a code of green meant that the reader would recommend the title without further review. A code of orange meant that the reader believes that the novel contains sensitive content that requires significant discussion. If a book was coded orange, we assigned 2 more readers. A code of red meant that the reader does not recommend the book because the literary value does not outweigh the sensitive content. At the conclusion of this meeting, we assigned additional readers for titles that were recommended as orange. Novels that were coded orange were read and reviewed by at least 4 committee members. We met twice in March to discuss the novels in depth, review rubric scores, and consider community feedback. At our final meeting, we reviewed all of the feedback for each title, and the committee members placed their votes. Novels were recommended based on consensus or a supermajority of 80%. The following titles are being recommended for the AP Literature list as green. If a teacher chooses to teach one of these novels, it will be listed on the syllabus for parental review at the beginning of the year. Although these titles are not marked as sensitive, a parent still has the option to opt out of any required title, including those that are green. These titles include Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. In addition, there are 4 titles that are being recommended for the AP Literature list as sensitive. If a teacher chooses to teach one of these titles, it will be listed on the syllabus at the beginning of the year, and teachers will be required to notify parents of the sensitive content. Parents and students will have the option to opt out of the selection if they do not feel that the content is appropriate. If a student opts out, the teacher will provide an alternate title with equivalent literary objectives, and there will be no penalty for this choice. These titles include Snow Falling on Cedars by David Guterson, In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, and The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It is worth noting that there were 2 titles that were submitted by teachers for review that the committee does not recommend. These are Miss Jane by Brad Watson and No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. The majority of the committee members felt that the literary value of these titles did not outweigh the sensitive content, so they will not be recommended.
After significant review, the committee recommends 9 books to be added to the literature list. This list will be designated for only advanced placement students in grades 11 and 12. At this time, we'll take any questions you may have. Any questions? Mr. Laney? Well, go ahead.
All right, thanks. So I appreciate all the work that the committee's done. It takes a lot to go and read these books and then reread them and review them and put that together. So I really appreciate that. There's nothing like being in an unpaid position and making hard decisions. So I get that. After reviewing this list, it doesn't seem consistent to me. For instance, Slaughterhouse 5, in my opinion, should be labeled sensitive. And the way I kind of look at things when it comes to sensitive or not, I don't look at it in the aspect of whether the kid can handle it or not, or whether it may be age appropriate or not. I just look at it whether it has sensitive material in it or not, plain and simple. So with this list, I feel that Slaughterhouse 5, if it's kept on the list, should be labeled sensitive. Let's see. A good way to tell if content is sensitive is if I were to read some of these books and some of the sensitive areas of the books in a live meeting like this, they couldn't be posted on YouTube. That's just an easy litmus test. Let's see, next thing. Oh, and as far as reading books, Mrs. Greenberg and I have had discussions about this. I personally probably read a book a week, which is probably 52 more books a year than most kids in high school read anyway. So before anybody jumps to conclusions about my comments on this list, this is not about banning anything. This is about giving kids choices and doing it in a way that doesn't put peer pressure on them. For instance, with the way the process is right now, is if there's a book on the list that's sensitive, right? They have an opt-out for it, and then they're giving another book. An easier way to do this, in my opinion, that would take the pressure off the kid would be to offer 2 books to the whole class and say, pick one of the 2. If we're going to suggest great works of writing, in my opinion, why not books by Charles Dickens, Mark Twain, Jane Austen, George Orwell? If you really want to get a great discussion going, 1984 would sure bring that out. Or even The Scarlet Letter. Scarlet Letter was a book that I read as a kid. I don't know if it's on the existing list or not, as I don't know what's on the list. It's
Those
on the
are
list.
on the existing list. Yep.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, that left an impression upon me. So I'm glad it's on the list. Can I get a copy of that list? Where can I get a copy of that list? Forgive my newness to this. It's in the weekly update. Oh, I missed it. All right. Shows you how much I have to read. Okay.
I did give you a lot of homework. I apologize.
Yeah, and I failed. No, I'm joking. Let's see. So here's the way I remember and look at the Scarlet Letter, right? It's written in a way that is thought-provoking, but it's not written with explicit content, and it still gets the point across. And it left such an impression on me that I remember it 35 years later. Human nature hasn't changed in millennia. So why not focus on concepts and not the explicit ways of explaining them? And so basically, I would like, instead of an opt-out when it comes to these on the list, make a choice. When the teacher presents it, give them a choice. And then the kids, so they don't have to feel their peer pressure or be ostracized because maybe just one kid will choose the other book, right, or opt out. Give them a choice. And on this list, I would like, if these are going to be kept on there, I want Slaughterhouse 5 to be labeled as sensitive because of what I've read in it. So that's all I have to say for right now.
Mrs. Case, I can't see you, but are you,
My
do
video
you have
going.
any comment or question?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my video there. I can see me, but I guess you can't. So, okay, I do. I was trying to show my face as I read a long comment here, if I might. I don't know why my video's not working. There, is that going now? Okay, thank you.
We can see you now.
Okay, thank you. I don't really want you to see me, but maybe that's more appropriate. So I have comments I wrote down. First, I want to thank the committee for all their time and dedication to read and discuss and write their thoughts on the recommended AP literature list. I also want to thank the concerned parents who attended the meetings and read the books and wrote their opinions to the committee for consideration. This is a ton of work. I know it is. I take my responsibility as a board member very seriously. I am committed to doing what is best for our students. We had an unfortunate incident last year where a book assignment was made without any sensitive material warning, without any parental permission, and without an alternative book choice for half the summer. Guidelines have been put in place to not have this again, to not have this occur again. I appreciate all the thought and effort that went into this process. Dr. Bells is committed to having input from the community and from the committees. All the processes are in place. But when the finalist list is to be approved or not approved, the buck stops at the elected school board. If there is a problem, the board is held accountable. It is our elected duty. The public expects us to protect our students and their families from questionable material. I take this responsibility very seriously. We are receiving a recommendation tonight to add books to the already extensive approved book list. I have additions suggested and spoken to knowledgeable English majors and to teachers in PV who I respect and love. We have added books to the list to bring richness and diversity and updated titles. Beyond that, I'm a parent to 7 children who have gone through Paradise Valley's AP summer reading program and books assigned during the school year. I am not new to this program. The purpose of the AP program is to challenge and educate these students in their preparation for college and careers. My family has been personally blessed by this often intense preparation. I'm at my daughter's college graduation today and tomorrow as I speak. She was well prepared. But this list, as it stands now, as recommended to the board, is unlike any books given to my children in the past. Lines have been crossed. I have read the notes on most of the books written by the committee members. Their initial response was to label multiple books with sensitive material. In their initial response, they did. Then a second member would read the book, sometimes a third. 5 books were put on the green list. These could be assigned to students and then discussed in class without parental permission. I have 1 book on the green list, which I have serious concerns with. It is Slaughterhouse 5. In the committee's own words, there is, and this is, I was taking care of all of this, so I can't quote it exactly. There were concerns on the list. There were sensitive material. They acknowledged it. There were some things in Common Sense Media, which they talked about. But the parents' comments said there were masturbation, oral sex, condoms. There was talking about it, marital infidelity, and pornography, innuendos. So I don't think to earth and getting together with a porn star. And there's all kinds of problems with it. It should have parental permission to read this book. It should not be on the green list. When I know books don't have to go along with the movie, when the movie was made, it was an R-rated movie. And I know it's been around a long time. I understand, I think since 1969. But I don't feel comfortable with this being on a green list at all. Why should this book be placed on a green list without parental permission? What is the objective with that? I also don't believe this book has enough literary value to be assigned. The significant challenges of this explicit content does not outweigh the liabilities. At the very least, it should require parental permission. I wonder what happens to students who choose an alternative. Do they miss out on lively educational class discussion? That's a real concern of mine. If we're having books where part of the class reads a book and part doesn't, years ago, I had a book concern and I went and my child could read a different book. Anyway, it's complicated, but I just think I'm concerned with students being ostracized by their choices, and the peer pressure is great during that time. I just have concern with that. So my second biggest concern is A Handmaid's Tale. I believe this book should not be on any recommended list at all, even the one with sensitive content. I was able to get into the committee's list that came from committee members, and this is some of the comments they had on those. The book contains significant suicide, ideation, public execution, rape, beatings, sexual encounters, and adultery. Some limited profanity and references to pornography. That is from the committee's own notes, that if you really dig deep into the committee, you can see those. And then another thing that was said here, the thoughts in that they talked about, it talks about suicide. Basically, these women are treated as sex slaves, and it talks about suicide, and I'm trying to references suicide or the ways the handmaids could commit suicide to get them out of their horrible circumstances. Basically, being raped or choosing to die. And that is a definition of a rape. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the details that I have. I believe that this is not an appropriate book to be assigned and be on any reading list that this district stands behind. So parents listed this book as having, some of them said that it mocks Christianity because it has it takes Bible quotes and takes them out of content. And I don't know. So I have a question. What message does this book send to teenage girls about women? And for that matter, to teenage boys? So I just don't think this should be on any list that PV's name is behind, and that I, as a board member, am responsible for. It is my recommendation that this book be taken off the list completely and not be able to be assigned to our students. As I've stated before, this is a recommendation to the board. We are the deciding body elected by the people to safeguard our children and provide them with a quality education. This is not book banning. This is our job. Thank you.
Mrs. Case. Mrs. Bacon, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. First, I do want to thank the committee. I know it was a tough one, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. I'm sure it was especially difficult for you as leaders of the committee, so thank you for the work that you've done. I think it is the choice of parents what books should be read by their children. 100%. I don't want to tell a parent what their child can read. I'm not interested in doing that. I have thought long and hard about this. I just wonder why we don't just list every book and send a letter of permission home for every book that is going into this AP class. It is a college level class. That doesn't mean that we have to have college level material in terms of some of the things that have been pointed out. But I do wonder if we should just send a letter home for every book that a teacher is going to teach about in an AP class that may be kind of a higher, more sophisticated content, I guess is the word. The other thing is I do like the idea of 2 books being offered. So I think there is consideration on both sides of that. There may be children who are ostracized because they're not reading the assigned book. And there also may be children ostracized for reading the assigned book. So I want to make sure that we understand that that goes both ways. That's not necessarily only the kids who aren't reading the assigned book are going to be ostracized. And that doesn't need to happen at all. It shouldn't happen ever. That's not what education is about. It's about learning new things. So, so those are my initial thoughts. I am glad, and I thank both Mr. Laney and Mrs. Case for their comments and sharing their concerns about things. The one thing that I am glad about is that we're not voting on this for a little bit so that we can kind of go back and absorb this, take a really good look at it, because I think it is worthy of significant thought and introspection. So I appreciate that we have a little bit more time than 2 weeks from now.
Mrs. Greenberg?
I agree with pretty much most of what Mrs. Bacon just said. I do believe that we are charged as a district to prepare our students, and I think when we are talking about students in particularly a 12th grade AP Lit class, I think we can pretty much assume most of these kids are going to college. Not all necessarily, but I think it's an assumption we can make. And it is our job to prepare them for that. We constantly talking about being college and career ready. And at least 2 of the books on this list I read in high school. And when we look at themes and we look at some of the concerns that have been expressed, I'm a little surprised nobody's bringing up The Sun Also Rises and some of the content in that book, quite honestly. So I think we can find sensitive material in many places. And I want to thank the committee, as Mrs. Bacon did. It was not, it's a lot to consider and to look at it through the lens of 2022 versus when I was in school, which was a while ago. And that's part of what we're dealing with. That's part, maybe that's why Sun Also Rises isn't considered sensitive anymore. Maybe we've been desensitized to some of the themes of The Sun Also Rises. But I think we do have to realize that we have to prepare our kids. And I appreciate the discussion of which of these books have appeared, have been referenced by AP, so we know that they have appeared on the test. And I think that the point we have to always keep in mind is, and I know that you have said it, is that no matter whether a book is considered sensitive or not, a parent can say, I do not want my student reading this book. Parent guardian can do that. That is absolutely the epitome of parental choice, and we support it. And I have to assume that that's what we've been doing for a long time and that our teachers are prepared. If a parent does not want a student to read a particular book, that they are prepared with an alternative, whether it's we move forward and we always offer an alternative. I think that's a discussion to be had, and how that would be handled. I think that can perhaps provide, a path, but it's not a path without a lot of additional work. But I think we also have to provide our teachers with a very robust list. And simply putting on this list does not mean that a teacher is going to choose it. And I think that's something else we have to keep in mind. It's a possibility, but it does not necessarily mean it's going to happen. But there's a reason. There's a reason teachers asked for these books to be reviewed, and there's a reason that the committee felt that these books should appear on our list. So I, again, appreciate the work of the committee.
Thank you. And I also, I was interested when you pointed out that no matter what level a book is rated, that there is always the opportunity for a parent to say to a teacher to offer a different option. And I think that is so important. And thank you, Mrs. Greenberg, for pointing that out too, that is no matter where it is on the list, that is always an option for our parents. Had some specific questions just to remind me, the Unbroken is the only one that's on here for the 11th grade AP class, and then all the rest are strictly for 12th grade. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And summer reading assignments will come from either this list or from the other 12th grade or 11th grade list, depending on the choice. And will those be green options that are given over the summer, or is there differentiated between a summer book versus?
For the summer books, teachers are only allowed to put a sensitive title on there if they are providing a list of choices. So they would have to be providing other choices if they include a sensitive book on their summer list. Otherwise, they could include a book that's on the list as green.
Okay, and if it were a summer list book were sensitive material, they would have that same form that would go home then with the summer reading assignment?
Yeah, they're required to notify parents of the sensitive content and, give them the alternative title.
Okay, thank you. I was interested, and you did point this out, but I wanted to just remind that every 2 years, this list is looked at adding and adding additional materials. So I think that's great, because being able to keep up with new literature and keeping up with the AP tests. And I did also like that you showed which ones have been on recent or prior AP tests. So knowing what literature they're pulling from is helpful and helps prepare our students for that. And this list, again, this is for the AP classes only. So other honors English or dual enrollment English, they go with the other list, the approved list.
Correct. AP teachers can teach off of the already established list, and then in addition, whatever is approved on this list, but it doesn't go the other way around. So other teachers are not able to teach titles that are specifically designated for AP.
Okay. And I also wanted to remind everyone that this is a whole new process for our AP teachers, because up until this list, the list was unlimited for the AP class.
Correct.
And so there was no designation, there was no criteria set, there was no literature team that was looking into these books. So this is, we've narrowed it down from unlimited to this list of 9 books. So a lot of work went into looking through these titles and discussion, and over time, I'm sure titles will be added with the same process. So I appreciate the process being started. and that this was something that was needed for our district. And I'm really glad we were able to get on that and get that moving and put it in motion and have this list with us here today, because that took a lot of undertaking to get from where we were to where we are today in that amount of time. But it is a big shift from unlimited to now having this approved list. And it does seem, we had a lot of comments up here about looking at perhaps many, in addition to being on the syllabus that, so syllabus is prepared each year for the AP literature class and goes out to the students and to the parents. And do the parents sign off on the syllabus? Is that something that comes back to the teacher?
So all teachers, and not just AP teachers, but all teachers are required to list any novels that they're going to be teaching throughout the year on their syllabus, or in the younger grade levels, it might be like a newsletter or something like that rather than a syllabus. We don't have a specific policy about parents signing the syllabus. I know that, I always did, and I think most teachers do get a signature on the syllabus, but I can't speak for everybody, so.
So I wonder if that may be a place where some of the content information, as opposed to every single time a title goes out, if it's listed on the syllabus and all that information is provided up front, and if the parent is signing off on the syllabus, then there would be a place for them to maybe make a notation at that time, and then it wouldn't be additional following up on paperwork throughout the year. It could be all contained at the beginning of the year. So that may be a way to give parental involvement from the very beginning without adding additional steps throughout the year. Just a suggestion, but it seemed like there was from the board interest in getting more parental feedback for all the books. Mr. Laney?
Yeah, and what you just said is exactly what I said at the beginning of the meeting with my board comments on the more transparency. And so by the AP doing this, it's awesome. It's a move in the right direction. So, and I'm glad Unbroken's going to be on there. It's a great book.
Okay. Do you, Dr. Bales, do you believe you have enough feedback from the board at this point? Are we getting you enough to think about?
Excuse me, I had another comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mrs. Case.
Thank you very much. I have a question to the presenters. How do you have a class discussion if half the class read one book and the other class, or 20% of the class read one book, or 2% read one book, or 5%? How do you have a class discussion then? I don't understand how you physically do this. I guess for summer reading, you could have them write things, but a lot of what literature is discussing it and going through and guiding the discussion. I don't understand how you do that.
I think that, if a teacher were offering multiple choices or even two choices, they would have to facilitate smaller group discussions, and provide maybe questions for the students to be able to answer. And then they would be in their smaller groups and the teacher would kind of visit each group. But, it definitely presents challenges with facilitating a whole group discussion if they're reading different books. So it would just be, the way the teacher designed it.
It seems to me, I'm not a teacher, but it seems to me that there are themes in a lot of these books that you could talk about thematic parts of the book and have students discussing that in a full class discussion, so that there's information shared. I think you have kind of those Socratic seminars that happen, where you're getting groups together and working on analyzing books. I think it's doable. Is it a lot more work? Yes, it is. And I feel for the teachers in terms of that much more work, but we do have to be responsive to the community. So this is a kind of balancing act that I think it can be done, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Aren't some of, this is happening now. I mean, this is not simply because we have a list that now has, we have a list that has sensitive books. This is happening now. This wouldn't be new simply by adding these books. So, perhaps, I mean, I think what Mrs. Bacon just brought up, I'm sure, is some of the what's happening, but perhaps for second read, you can go back to, some of our AP teachers and go, okay, how are you handling this now? And maybe we can get that feedback and information.
Well, and I'm just going to mention elementary teachers do this all the time because not all their kids are reading at the same level. So there's lots of discussion going on in small groups and pulling groups together to read different books. So this happens throughout the spectrum of our schools and grade levels.
And I would also expect, and maybe it's an inappropriate expectation, but that if a teacher provides a syllabus and provides a list and there is a book that 98% of the class is not going to read, has been opted out, I'm going to assume that teacher is going to withdraw that as an option. So I think it goes back to the parental choice within the classroom. And I think we need to respect that.
Dr. Corson, and go ahead, Mrs. Case.
I have another comment. And you brought up the point about the sun also rises. The sexual content are done differently by Hemingway. And the teacher who read that book made comments from the committee. The teacher who read it said Hemingway left it at the bedroom door. Now they have other things going on in The Sun Also Rises. There's alcoholism and everything else, but and other problems. But that is how Hemingway handled it. Where these other books that have been on this list are more explicit, and there's some graphic sex scenes that I have some concerns, and parents need to be well aware of what they're giving permission to, and it needs to have diverse opinion on what they're giving permission to, and not just a simplified version. Thank you.
And Mrs. Case, I understand that, but the point I was trying to make is different people will find different issues with different books. And that's the reality of it.
So just to summarize, President Mature, governing board members, cabinet, and guests, Dr. Corson and I have sure been taking notes. And I think some of the themes that I've heard from multiple people here at the board level is the idea of offering two choices, the idea that there continues to be parent choice, that there's potentially a syllabus up front with a signature, and there's an interest in maybe finding out how we're handling it right now in terms of delivering more than one instructional piece of literature in the classroom. Those are the themes I heard that I sense there's some one-offs that were mentioned but I didn't sense themes. So that's my summary. If there's any more you want to add at this time, I'd be happy to listen. With that, we thank our presenters tonight. Dr. Corson, your team, thank you so much. We'll be back. And just for the sake of our online audience as well, the second reading will not be presented at the May 5th board meeting. It'll be presented at the May 19th board meeting. So we have some time to reconsider and digest all of the conversation tonight. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I would like to remind you that our next regular board meeting will be held on Thursday, May 5th at 7 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.